Hi folks, this is all the fruit, and today I want to explore around the central part of the beautiful and ancient city of Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, and coincidentally also the place where I grew up. I didn't like Sofia so much in the 90s and early 2000s because it was pretty run down, but in recent decades some of the old glory of a minor eastern capital has been restored. And yeah, what am I planning to find here? Maybe a thing or two to forage, not too many rare fruits. Bulgaria was never too innovative with fruits or even with ornamentals, and to be honest, I still see the same ornamentals in Sofia that I saw 40 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 new additions. But I hope to find a lot of ancient trees, to see a lot of the ancient sites I remember from my childhood, and yeah, let's see what we find. Just don't expect too many exotic or tropical fruits. The winters in Sofia, which is in southeastern Europe, inland 550 meters above sea level, are hardcore. Starting at Sveta Nedelja church, that's where my grandmother came to pray all the time. Coincidentally also the location of one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in history, and definitely the deadliest in Bulgaria. They've put a memorial for that. But let's see what edible stuff we can find around here. Maybe the most common street tree in Bulgaria is the horse chestnut, which is native to Bulgaria, at least this species, Aesculus hippocastanum. It is native to just a very small forest in the east of Bulgaria, but you find it in every town. Linden or lime trees are also very common as roadside trees in Bulgaria. They are native. Like the horse chestnut, they are quite tolerant to drought. And like the horse chestnut, they produce a lot of deliciously smelling flowers. And unlike the horse chestnut, also being used a lot for tea. I wonder, the flowering season is almost over, but they still smell like crazy. Wonderful smell. Oregon grape from North America, but quite common in Bulgaria as an ornamental. A feral cherry plum, which probably somebody spat out. And sonchus, a type of thistle, which is quite edible. Yucca or palm lily, there are a lot of species which can tolerate the cold and drought of Sofia, and many parts are edible except for the root, which is so rich in saponin that's being used as a soap by Native Americans. And here some irises right behind it. A drooping willow, quite fit for such a place of serenity and mourning, and next to it a drooping mulberry, which should be in season right now. And yes, a couple quite small but tasty fruits. Potentilla is edible, so is amaranthus. Juniperus, I think this is the smell Juniperus sabina, at least in my youth. Everything was. No, this is something new. It's not smelly. I approve of that. Lonicera nitida is toxic, but Puracantha coccinea is an important fruit for foraging in North America. However, in Europe, nobody knows that it's edible. Some of those firs and spruces can be used for their young growth, but the season is already over. And here in the meadow, well, dandelions, yarrow, shepherd's purse, clover, and daisies, all of them nice and edible, but maybe not here, not only doggies, plenty here. The common yew, also native to Bulgaria, but very rare. Cotoneaster horizontalis, you can find fruits on that at any time of the year. They are not great, but they are reliable. Sometimes you will not find them, but if you are lucky, basically in any month of the year you can find edible fruits on this cotoneaster. They are small, not so easy to forage, but good enough. Just don't eat the old man's beard, it's toxic. Oh yeah, this juniper is quite smelly. By the way, if you think that this Svetanedele looks a lot like Hagia Sophia in Istanbul minus the minaret, yes, basically Hagia Sophia used to be a Christian church. Well, this used to be, as far as I remember, a Muslim mosque, both deriving from the same architectural tradition. Over there is the only Muslim mosque in Sofia which remained as a mosque for the small minority of Turkish people in the city, and as you can see, the architecture is quite similar. Couple cedrus trees ahead, and here unfortunately a bunch of ailanthus. It's not deterred by the harsh winters of Sofia because it manages to grow well in the dry summer, so that the wood is not susceptible to frost once the winter comes. Nasty stuff, very invasive, destroying old architecture and new architecture, and it's not even edible. Robinia pseudacacia is also invasive, but here is the variety umbraculifera. It makes small round crowns, can be pruned. I think it's umbraculifera, there might be other similar varieties, and this is not as invasive as the wild form, which is also widespread throughout Sofia and almost all of Bulgaria. Going into this underground part where it used to be full of hundreds of scammers in the 90s. I guess those tourist shops are still gonna scam you, but maybe not as blatantly as the scammers used back then. This here is the oldest church and the oldest building in Sofia, surrounded by roses with edible petals. However, those are not the Bulgarian oil rose, are they? No, this is something different. Still nice and smelly. As I said, petals are edible, but with those rose cultivars, the rose hips, unfortunately, are not. What can we eat here? No, stay away from that. Here some different types of lamb's quarters and mallows, and here I'm not exactly sure what this is. This is a Zolaneaceae. It could be incredibly toxic, it could also be incredibly edible. I'm a little bit confused. I'll go with toxic for now. And this is not true chamomile, so you cannot eat it either. A lot more lamb's quarters, you are safe with those. Also a lot of buxus, very popular in Bulgaria, but for some funny reason not native to Bulgaria. The wood is so hard, it's basically like plant-based ivory. And you little cuties, are you edible? I bet you are. And here, what was it called? Prickly lettuce, compass lettuce. This is the wild form of the common lettuce. It's quite spiny and bitter. Also invasive from North America. Pinus mugo, also native to Bulgaria, also a very traditional ornamental because, it can deal with cold and it can deal with drought. Oh, and here, this stuff is being used as a substitute for saffron. Well, here we have some wood sorrel, edible, some geraniums, not really edible, but very nice and aromatic, and here are some thistles, horrible weeds, but also kinda edible. Lavender, when I was young, it wouldn't have grown here in Sofia. It is being grown a lot in the south of Bulgaria, in the Thracian, around the Thracian plains, not inside, and in the Rose Valley. But in Sofia, I never saw it in my childhood. It was too harsh here. Also, somebody told me Bulgaria is now the biggest exporter of lavender and lavender products. Please check it and tell me if it's true. Those excavations are quite new. They weren't here at my time, and since they're quite new, there are still not too many plants growing around here. So we are going up here. This is a type of, well, this is Virginia creeper, and this is sumac. Sumac is a nice sour spice. The fruits, the dried berries, are being made into a nice sour spice. Very drought tolerant, but it seems that here it's struggling. Since we are here in the center of Sofia, a lot of bombastic Soviet era architecture. Oh wait, I think I missed the big fig tree over there. Maybe later. I've made a separate video about it. Massive monumental architecture constructed by a tiny country which was incredibly poor and almost starving in the 50s and 60s when this was built. Quercus rubra, an oak from North America, very popular here, but unfortunately, unlike the European oaks, it's almost worthless for wildlife. I guess the squirrels eat the nuts, eat the acorns, the birds can and the squirrels can live with it, but all the insects and fungi and plants relying on oaks, they cannot deal with it, not around here. Fruit trees were frowned upon in the city center in communist times. They were considered more provincial. You could have them in the suburbs. I'm glad that there are some here now. A cherry plum, a cherry. You can also eat this mellow. Oh yeah, here the melissa, smelling of lemons. Well, old man's beard not edible. Hazelnuts are edible. Here is a young fig tree. This wouldn't have grown here 40 years ago when I was young. This would have frozen to death. Rubus caesius, the blue blackberry, yes, they exist. Here more edible mallows and melissa. Some sort of sunflower, maybe topinambur. Topinambur is a sunflower where you eat the tubers, not the seeds. And here this should be Geum urbanum. You could use the root as cloves. However, I don't know that it was used like this in Bulgaria. They certainly use melissa, I mean. Here some mustard, maybe a barbarea, edible when young. This thing is called plantain, also edible. What have we got here? Prunus laurocerasus, the laurel cherry, is native to Bulgaria and it was used as an ornamental in my youth, but not extensively. And here some ornamental bearberries. Birches were very popular in communist times. I guess because they were the national tree of Russia, so all of the Russian satellites grew them a lot. Oh, and this is an interesting place. This is the city bathhouse. Sofia has a bunch of mineral springs, and actually a lot of people used to come and probably still come here for medicinal purposes. And this thing was so neglected in the 90s. I remember there was a horse skeleton in this trough. And what here? No bathing, washing and washing up. They forgot to put the same sign over here. So our minorities and majorities are enjoying the nice fountain. There used to be an ancient mulberry tree around here, not the oldest in the area. We are going to see a really old one now, but there must be some near the mosque, or maybe it has died in the last couple of decades. I think it was right next to the mosque. Guess it's gone. You can see the mosque was built on top of some ancient stuff, probably Roman. Oh, look at that. Well, yeah, this would have been a typical spot in Sofia in the 90s. A random wild path through something. Pigeons and an abandoned broken fountain. Oh, lots of pigeons, lots of good protein. And, well, maybe no children in the fountains because the fountains would have been quite dirty and full of glass. Is this a rowan or a service tree? Rowan is grown from time to time around here. Service tree Not so much here. Traditionally it was too cold for service tree up here. Here we have a red ornamental variety of the cherry plum above the red ornamental berberis varieties. Well, I think this berberis may be, what is it, Juliane or something like that? I forgot the name, tell me the name of this berberis. This berberis doesn't have edible fruits, but the fruits of the blue ornamental cherry plum are totally edible. I saw no sign fruit stealing forbidden, so since I'm considerably taller than the average Bulgarian, I can get more than just the low-hanging fruits. Half ripe, and the cherry plum is the only plum I'm aware of where you can actually eat the half ripe and even the completely unripe fruits. With other plums they taste disgusting, but with this they're very sour but delicious. Also, if you see this stuff here, see those red and white things? Usually they look like this, but they can be in any other shape. Usually they are made of wool. Very nice Bulgarian tradition. You give this to people you like, and then whenever you gift it to them in very early spring, and whenever they find the first flowering tree, they hang them on the tree. And cherry plum flowers quite early, and this tree is quite central, so a lot of those things here. There was one time they started introducing this to Germany and to the west of Europe when the Bulgarians became a significant immigrant group in Western Europe. But then what happened? They replaced it with some other celebration in March, like after Carnival and before Easter. What was it? A couple years this seems to have getting established in the West, and then it disappeared from the West. But Bulgarians have done this custom for hundreds of years, so here it's still alive. Forsythia, also flowering very early. Also some of those things here, the flowers are edible. People think they're also good for bees, but no, they are not. Those are mostly hybrids, no nectar. A hawthorn, grown as a tree, originally with 2 stems. So is it a tree when it has 2 stems? Does it need to have 3, or does it need to have the maximum of 1? The fruits are edible. Here a couple yews. Well, the fruits of the yews are edible, but the seeds will kill you. Not a huge overdose, but not even just a handful, but a couple will kill you. So better don't eat the yew. Also, I wonder why there so many minorities here. This must be some sort of meeting spot of the minorities. I don't know why. I mean, it doesn't seem to be directly connected to the mosque, but lots of high minority, lots of cute minority children around here. Some even selling some stuff. Oh yeah, more than some. This streetcar is after my time. This is one of the more modern ones. I know it still looks like third world and 60 years old. That's Bulgaria. Yeah, the warm healing waters of Sofia. We used to get the water on the other side of the street. Now this is new. I mean, they made it to look old, like almost Roman, but it is totally new. And this is wonderful drinking water. And if you try to get refreshments here on a hot summer day like today, you're gonna get burned. This is body temperature, 37, I think it's about 37 degrees. Well, how many degrees is it? Oh, 46 degrees. This is what? This is like 118, 120 in freedom units. The freedom units, they actually imperial units, and no, they don't come from the British Empire, from the German Holy Roman Empire. Yeah, it's hot. I guess you could make tea with it, maybe even coffee. It's hot and it smells of farts. It's hot because it's volcanic, and it smells of farts because the volcanoes add sulfur to it. Actually, in the area of Triavna, where I'm going next, the sulfur content in the mineral water is sometimes so high that you can light it on fire. So sometimes you drive by some little fountain by night and yeah, it's burning. Oops. Where is the exit? Where is the exit? Oh yeah, size matters. This was built for the standard short Bulgarians, but even generations ago some of my family had to buy clothes in the only shop for big people in Bulgaria, so yeah. All this stuff doesn't scare me. You don't need to be fit when you're big. Here are the Roman city walls. I also don't remember this specific excavation spot. I don't know, it looks like it has been dug up and restored more recently. Oh, come on, more stupid fences for short people. Oh. Not for me though. And here is something which I'm seeing for the first time. I found it on the satellite, and I never knew about it, and my family never showed it to me when I was a child. I mean, we always loved mulberries, and we always loved huge trees. And this mulberry is 650 years old, maybe the oldest tree in all of Sofia. Has been protected at least since communist times. Well, before definitely also. I think it was even protected during Turkish times. You can say a lot of bad things about the Ottoman Empire and about the Turks, but they did love big trees. But today I'm seeing it for the first time. So I made the video of the ancient mulberry. Here in the parking lot behind it is a cherry tree, but I don't think I can reach it. Hordeum, probably Hordeum murinum. This is a sign for warm climate, or at least dry, hot climate. Yeah, unfortunately, next to those excavations, they're invasive ailanthuses and black locusts. I bet nobody planted them there, but this area was probably neglected in the 90s, became more or less a jungle, and then when they kind of restored it, they decided, well, some big trees grew here, so let's leave them. But still, their roots are horrible for the pavement, for the old ruins, and so on. And next to the old ruins, this looks like a public toilet over there, or what is it? Oh, by the way, I like Hordeum murinum because it is, I'm not sure this is murinum, it looks a little bit different, smaller than murinum. Well, for me it's a sign of a warm climate, but people with dogs hate it because it goes into the paws and faces of the dogs, and often they have to go to the vet. Here next to it, burdock. Yeah, children like to throw the sticky seeds at each other, and it seems to be this is the natural origin of Velcro. Well, basically somebody looked at Velcro and then reproduced it. But also the roots are edible and are a staple in East Asia. Nobody eats them in Bulgaria. This is finally the smelly juniper of my childhood. No, it's not smelly. Very strange. That's with all those childhood memories, you remember things wrong. Oh, that's very interesting. A couple palm trees with leaf damage. Were they left outside during the winter? Look at that. This is a Washingtonia palm. This is a Phoenix canariensis, and both have leaf damage. Come on, you cannot leave palms in pots outside in winter in Sofia. They will not survive. Maybe they brought them out too early and Some late frost hit them. Here's some citrus in a pot, some wood sorrel, some wisteria. Here another Washingtonia palm, a Chamerops palm. Interesting. They like palms, or maybe the palms were in this covered courtyard in winter and got the frost damage. There are a couple things standing in there which still look very frost damaged. It's important to pay attention to such trees to assess the actual winter hardiness zone of an area. Literature might say something, but the trees don't lie. Oh, yeah. This used to be a national sport in the 90s, collecting old metal and old paper, and unfortunately he's doing it here with all this glass wool, which is extremely carcinogenic. He's removing it from the metal, no protection, no nothing. Poor guy. Yeah, those were mass phenomena in the 90s. Now they are rare. Bulgaria has come out of crazy poverty, but you still see it, and it's sad. Oh, daylilies. Those daylilies have very beautiful but also very tasty and edible flowers. And the buds and leaves and young fruits are also edible. A fruit and veg store. Even in communist times, when everything was standardized, we had dedicated fruit and veg stores. And typical for Bulgaria, almost everything is locally produced except for the bananas, peaches, apricots, watermelons, blueberries, strawberries, pears, tomatoes, a lot of different apples, peppers, tomatoes, yeah. Okay, the avocados are not local, neither are the grapefruits. Здравейте, вода имате ли? В магазина до вас. Ами добре, тогава... По колко са доматите? Funny, the tomatoes are about 2 times more expensive than in Germany. Какъв сорт? Розови. Розали. Ами добре, тогава да опитаме тия розали. Even the water is 5 times more expensive than in Bulgaria. I'm taking the cheapest one and it doesn't even have a label. Still costs 2.5 times more than in Germany. Tomatoes are one of the best products of Bulgaria. Even the commercial varieties are often equal or even superior to heritage varieties in the West. This is not one of the best, but still it has a lot more flavor and umami compared to Western tomatoes. Well, I hope it does for that price, but of course those are small inner city shops, and even the locals around here, the ones without crazy salaries, they know where to get the stuff for a fraction. At shops and markets nearby, it's like in every capital or tourist city. Yeah, really, man, those communist Stalinist buildings. I mean, back then Bulgaria had what? 3.5 million inhabitants, was dirt poor and had no industry, and they built all this stuff instead of building decent housing for the people. It looks impressive. Definitely impressed all the peasants coming to Sofia. Many of them coming to Sofia to build this stuff, but yeah, guess a lot of people maybe didn't starve, but at least went hungry for building all those things. This you can afford in London or Paris, but not in the capital of a tiny Balkan nation. Well, this is also new. Those big glass domes. Yeah, Sofia was not a big but a sizable Roman town, so there are a lot of excavations, and good that they didn't just destroy everything. Bet somebody's cousin got millions for this. for the scrap which is falling apart just years later. And if you happen to stumble upon those tombs, well, you better pray to your deity of choice, because they might not be Bulgaria built, but they are definitely Bulgaria installed. Shrapsira hibiscus syriacus, the Syrian hibiscus, the national flower of, you guessed right, South Korea. Yeah, I know, somehow South Korea chose a plant which probably comes from Syria. You can eat the flowers and fruits, and in kindergarten we used to eat the fruits. Despite the adults all telling us that we are gonna die, we ate them en masse, and decades later I learned, yes, they are edible. But still listen to the adults, they saved me from eating a lot of other toxic things. I don't know why we defied the adults with the Syrian hibiscus and ate it like crazy. Could have gone the wrong way, but we survived. This I think I've seen for the first time, some type of choke cherry with red leaves. Is it? It's not Prunus serotina. Could it be Prunus padus? Maybe Prunus, what was it, Louisianica? Definitely some red leaf choke cherry. I'm seeing it for the first time. The cherries should be edible, but not as tasty as, well, cultivated cherries. Yeah, I guess this is also cultivated as an ornamental, you know what I mean. Here once again, the church which is the oldest building of Sofia. Oh, and I guess this church offended somebody because they painted it. How can a 1800-year-old church offend somebody? Oh yeah, and the name was Sveta-Petka, the name of this ancient church. I always forget it. Here we are entering one of those fancy Stalinist buildings. And the interesting thing about us is not the architecture of this ancient building, not even the architecture of another ancient Roman church, just slightly younger than the oldest one around the corner. No, it's the specific microclimate. This is, of course, a courtyard enclosed from all sides with tall buildings. There is just one small opening over there, and apart from it, it's just such, well, those might look like those might be giant gateways, but compared to the enclosed space, they are still tiny. All the air conditioners, well, okay, they will cool the outside in winter and heat it in summer. But even the windows, I guess, most of them still old one-panel glasses. Yes, see, this is the only opening over there. Coincidentally, it goes to the south. And that's why the microclimate here is crazy. And, well, you can see everything is pretty dry when compared to outside. I guess that's because not all of the rain came in here. This catalpa, I'm sure nobody planted it, but they just left it. Forgot what that tree was. Was it an... There is a small apricot that died here. This looks like an old ancient apricot or peach. Here, a feral mulberry. But those are all not the reason I'm here. Here, one of the few plants where the fruits grow to the light, but the fruits, they grow inwards into the cracks of the wall. They are like a peanut. The peanut flower grows towards the light, but once pollinated, it grows into the ground. But this is also not the reason. See, that's the only opening going south. What do we have here? A couple conifers. You could expect a lot of Mediterranean weeds here in this enclosed and ancient space, but nope. Also, the cherry plum here is nothing special. Neither the horse chestnut here. No, the special thing is this fig tree over there. See it? I mean, what is so special about a fig tree in an ancient Roman ruin? I mean, figs and the Romans, they kind of go together. The Romans are Mediterranean, the figs are Mediterranean. Romans ate figs all the time, they were a staple. So what's so special about it? Let's get closer. When I was young, there were no figs in Sofia. Figs were something that grew along the sea coast and in lowland places like Plovdiv, and even there they used to freeze all the time. But in Sofia, nope. However, at one time in the 90s, about 30 years ago, I noticed this plant. It was tiny. It was basically the size of this thing here. I mean, people tried to plant figs in Sofia all the time, but they froze. This froze down to the ground every year, but it recovered every year. It was the size of this, and it was a miracle in the 90s. Guess it hasn't frozen to the ground for over 20 years. This would have been impossible in Sofia a couple decades ago. The climate was so harsh. I mean, here it is protected in many ways. First, of course, the city is a big heat island. The center is the hottest. Then all those buildings surrounding it, all those buildings heating like crazy because those were government ministries. They had it as hot as they wanted, even if other people didn't have enough heat. And then, last but not least, it's growing on the ground of a 2-meter deep Roman ditch. And yeah, I guess when I saw it in the mid and 90s, it was probably more or less around the last time it froze to the ground. Maybe around 2000 was the last time it froze to the ground. Those could be 25-year-old stems. It's producing like crazy. And of course, unfortunately, those are Capri figs. Those are male figs. And you know that male flowers usually don't need to be dispersed. So they never turn into tasty edible fruits. They turn into a type of sponge and fall down after pollination. So the biggest and maybe only big fig tree or shrub of Sofia produces figs which are, I would say, useless. I mean, there are not even female trees around here for pollination. There are no fig wasps in the cold highland city of Sofia. Next to this tree there is something else. Something which looks a lot like a fig. And it has been cut off. Maybe it died or maybe it got cut off without dying. But we can use it to guess the age of this one. Let's say, well, here they are still the young, well, those young things remaining. So, and fig timber is poisonous, but it's still pretty soft, so cannot have been cut down that long time ago. Let's count the rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh no, I cannot recognize them. I mean, do we count only the big rings or do we also count the teeny tiny thin rings? Well, maybe you can count them for me. Here is a whole cross section. Let's zoom in. Can count as much as you want now. Tell me how old this thing is. Let's assume this is a fig, and let's see to what age it got before it got cut down. We can assume that this one, the one that did not cut down, is at least that old and probably maybe 4 or 5 years older. Yeah, start counting away, folks. Exiting through another ministry tunnel. Here another, I guess, mosque got turned into an archaeology museum. A couple quite ancient platanos tree in the courtyard. Platanus orientalis is native to Bulgaria, but I'm not sure that this is orientalis. Could be Platanus ex hispanica, could also be orientalis. Let's see. Oh, the leaf is also a bit ambiguous. Orientalis usually has a lot more pointy tips, but who knows? Well, anyways, Bulgaria has a lot of those ancient Platanus trees. Canadian? Platanus occidentalis, канадски клин. Ама аз мисля, че е хибрида между канадския и нашинския, защото листата му са малко странни. Не е нашинския, мисля, че не е и канадския, мисля, че е точно хибрида, испанския, дето са го хибридизирали в Испания преди векове. Но не съм сигурен. So this guy says this is not the Bulgarian platanus, he says it's the Canadian. Let's agree it's the hybrid, most probably the hybrid of the Canadians or of the North American and the Mediterranean. Those should be Roman sarcophagi. Well, it's the archaeological museum. For a moment I wondered what Roman sarcophagi do in front of a mosque, but yeah, unfortunately during Ottoman times, everybody and their mother, not just the Turks, Bulgarians and others were also involved. They thought that there is gold hidden inside all those old Roman marbles and other pieces of stone. They knew about the wonderful Roman concrete, and they thought that those marble blocks are also made of Roman concrete and that the Romans hid gold coins inside. Guess why almost every piece of marble, ancient marble you find on the Balkans is smashed. Of course nobody ever found even a speck of gold inside those things. But they destroyed millions of priceless artifacts that way. This used to be the Turkish konak in Ottoman times, like the regional administration. It became the parliament, it became a museum. Did it become the parliament again at some time? This became the parliament at some time and so on. Well, an old administrative building. Why am I telling you this? Well, because there is an old park around there. Yeah, you can say a lot of bad things about the Turks/Ottomans, but they loved old trees. And they're gonna tell you a couple stories about that once we arrive there. And see this? There is a conspicuous empty spot where there are just a couple flowers and lawn. This used to be, according to some, the most important building in Sofia. You remember how they mummified Lenin? Well, of course the Bulgarians did the same. The Bulgarians mummified Dimitrov, basically our Lenin. And they built him. He died right after the end of World War II. And from old bricks, from houses, from the destroyed houses from the Allied bombing, they built him a mausoleum here. Just took them a couple days to build it. And then after communist time it got demolished, but it took them much longer to demolish because despite being built in 6 days, very hastily, it was incredibly solid. But that's why there is kind of a hole here which looks a little bit strange. Ancient rose bushes here. If I might guess, I would say they were planted around the time the mausoleum was built here. Ancient rose bushes. Should be what, 80 or yeah, pretty much exactly 80 years old now, if I'm right about their age. Oh, also, you know the Red Square in Moscow? Well, in Bulgaria, yeah, stop dude. In Bulgaria, our pendant where was the yellow pavement. When you said I'm going to the yellow pavement, that meant that you are going to some very important ministry or to the government or to the parliament. It was like you're going to the fanciest area of Bulgaria. And if you say I live on the yellow pavement or literally on the yellow cobblestones, that meant that you are part of the ruling communist elite. Their neighborhoods are here on this side, and they have a couple really nice old parks which I want to visit. Purslane, this was the favorite summer vegetable of Greeks and Romans because it just needs a couple freak summer rains to grow. Very healthy for blood, very healthy for digestion. Very common as a wheat in Bulgaria, but for some reason no Bulgarian eats it. Bulgarians really like, at least at my time, liked to forage like wild fruits, veggies, mushrooms and so, but just a very limited selection of species for some reason. I never found out why. Whatever we eat from the wild, the Turks, they eat like 5 versions of it. Maybe after all those wars here, in the 19th and 20th century, a lot of the knowledge got lost. I don't know, tell me why Bulgarians who relied so much on foraging until very recent times didn't have a lot of ideas what to forage. Look at that, the figs are spreading. There's some elderberry here and the young fig tree in the very frost protected microclimate of this gully. Actually, this is a place where a lot of non-frost hardy, like tropical, subtropical plants first got spotted in Nordic places. Yeah, and here is the elderberry, also a tropical plant basically, but quite well adapted to the cold of Europe, Northern Asia, and even all the way to Canada and Alaska. Speaking of Canada and the US, Acer negundo, an invasive maple that originates from North America. Here another ancient tree, the elm. Actually, the fruits of the elm are edible and tasty, and I only found out this year. Well, I knew it theoretically years ago, but I tried them for the first time this year. And here again, the old communist time sign for centenarial tree. What are those? Those look like some ornamental apples. No, I think this is some sorbus. Pity there is no label here. This is some ornamental sorbus. In Soviet Russia, car drive you. In Soviet Russia, car made of rocks. And you wait 1300 years to get car. Couple nice old elderberries. Fancy party. I remember when I could get a coffee for less than 10 cents at this place. Now I guess it will be 10 euros. This guy looks like Levski. Is this Levski? Well, I guess he's a random miner. Not miner as in child, but miner, well, could also be a sweeper. Pittosporum tobera from Japan. The Japanese, what was it? Japanese pagoda tree. The fruits are toxic, the flowers are supposed to be edible, and some idiot planted thousands of it in Sofia decades ago. The seeds are pure glue. They are making such a, not the seeds, the whole fruit, they are making such a mess. This would have been impossible in communist times. Well, one of the reasons being that we didn't have hammocks back then. Oh, and don't ask me how many people are in this hammock. Oh, I guess this was an Acer pseudoplatanus which got cut down, and here some suckers are coming out from the leaves. Also called the mountain maple in Germany, it didn't survive the droughts of the last years. Must have been a giant ancient tree. This is, by the way, the sugar maple of Europe, like the Alps in Northern Europe. They used to tap it for sugar, just like the maples in Canada. A nice sizable mulberry tree. Could be well about 80 years old. A ginkgo. Could also be quite old because it's not growing at the best spot, the roots showing. Another ancient platanus. Wonder which one this is. Like this guy? This guy, well, maybe he knew something. Maybe he was not a botanist, but had heard something. Maybe they have introduced Western platanus here. Well, this looks with all the little, yeah, with a lot of tips. It doesn't look like the oriental ones. And do you see all the flower, all the fruits here? Let's see if a whole bowl has fallen, because this is the itching powder fruit. It's so horrible that it used to be sold in places where you couldn't find platanus as itching powder. Crazy, horrible stuff, and we used to play with them as children, but never had any trouble. This might have been the oldest Sophora tree in Sofia. Maybe that gave them the idea to plant them many thousands. Or it's not the only one, there are more there. And this oak, they have repaired it with concrete, but a lot of the stuff, this is very recent. This is 2, 3, 4 years old, folks. Those methods have been obsolete for over 50 years. In Germany, they used to do this stuff 100 years ago. Stop cementing trees with building materials. This doesn't work. A tree is expanding and shrinking in a completely different way from cement. You can mix cement and steel because coincidentally they have the same coefficient of expansion, but you cannot mix concrete with wood. That doesn't work. It doesn't work in construction, and it doesn't work on a living organism. It also doesn't help that you nail old oak bark to it to camouflage it. Oh, also look at that. Somebody's cousin has done this. Somebody's cousin has gotten a lot of money for the surgical work, and I guess it looked pretty nice when they showed it to the press. But underneath it was all rubbish. How long do you think such a little plank will survive here? Even if the concrete worked, the plank would never have worked. And as you can see, just very few years later, it's already broken. Wait, what is this thing behind this old mulberry tree? What is this here? This looks interesting. Is this a chestnut? This seems to be a chestnut, but with very small and delicate leaves. This is not the European chestnut. This is some, well, if it is a chestnut, then this is another chestnut. Oh, do we see chestnuts or anything up there? What is this, folks? Yeah, seems to be a chestnut. Here we have male chestnut flowers. This is definitely not the European chestnut. The leaves are definitely chestnut, but not European chestnut. Tell me what this chestnut can be, folks. Do you know what's funny? In the supermarkets of Bulgaria, basically you get more or less the same stuff you did in communist times, and it almost never comes from Western Europe. It comes from Turkey, Greece, Serbia, Ukraine, Romania. Some is even produced locally. All the Bulgarians have grown very lazy. And the same thing is in the parks. I didn't point them out. I saw one or two things which I don't remember from my childhood. Oh, this looks like a more affordable place to drink a coffee. But basically everything I'm seeing here, I saw here over 40 years ago. They haven't changed their preferences for ornamental plants in decades. It's still the old fashion which I encountered here in the 80s. The Russian Orthodox Church of Sofia. If I'm not too lazy, I'll show you the Greek Orthodox and Armenian Orthodox-ish, not really Orthodox churches here in Sofia in this video. Back then, of course, Russia was the best, so we knew, yeah, of course, the Russians, they have the best stuff. They have the best space rockets, they have those golden spoons nobody else has, and they have those beautiful, colorful golden churches. Didn't matter that it was so small. Every time we came here, my family pointed it out to me, and I always wanted to see it. Yeah, the Russian church. Small but really pretty, and the park around it, but nothing special. Oh, and by the way, this used to be the Natural History Museum. I think it still is my favorite place in all of Sofia as a child, of course. A drinking fountain. In the 90s, the lemonade cellars were destroyed, basically all of them, and now very few have been restored. But in the 80s, they were everywhere in Bulgaria. Yeah, I mean, back then, people didn't want to pay for drinks in the hot summer. And part of the Botany department was in this building. I had business there a couple of times. No, not as a child, this was in the 2000s. I'm not sure, I guess this was the first astronomical observatory here in Sofia. I mean, it looks like it. Alexander Nevsky Church. most famous building in Sofia and all of Bulgaria. The communists tried hard to replace it, well, not to replace it, not to rip it off, but they built a culture center in Sofia and a big monument on a mountain top and other things to make them into symbols of Bulgaria, but for the people they stayed a symbol of Bulgaria. And once a circus from Eastern Germany came over, and the acrobats were actually caught. They were caught by the police scraping off the gold from the roof. Yeah, it's real gold. It might be very thin, but if you scrape off a couple square meters, you get enough for a couple gold coins. Oh yeah, and here are the people selling antiques and Soviet memorabilia. Well, not just Soviet. Was this a Stahlhelm? I think one of them just has a... Oh, yeah, well, could be a copy, but could also be an old and repainted Wehrmacht Stahlhelm. Who knows? You can find a lot of copies of icons out here. Some of them are made to quite a high artistic standard. However, if you want to see real icons, one of the best collections of Orthodox Christian icons in the world is in the crypt of Alexander Nevsky Church. Back to the edible plants. This is a very modern looking building here. It's actually a Roman basilica from the 6th or 7th century, technically Byzantine, but they called themselves Romans. It looks like it was built 100 years ago and just slightly neglected. And this lion might be one of very few bronze monuments in Bulgaria that did not get stolen in the 90s, probably because it's so big and in such a prominent place. But all the smaller bronze and even iron monuments, they got stolen. Even the platings on the playgrounds got stolen, apart from the playgrounds where everything was made of concrete. Yeah, those we still have a couple of them. The eternal fire still burning. It didn't burn in the 90s. They didn't have fuel for that. Oh yeah. Here is the center of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church. Let's see if we can salvage something from their courtyard. Nope. Conifers and a lot of ornamental cherries. Those cherries bear beautiful flowers but no fruits. Yeah, this is one of the new things. In my time, people didn't plant ornamental cherries in Bulgaria. We didn't have them, I think. And I think people would have been opposed to the idea of planting a cherry that doesn't produce fruits. But now, because they don't want to clean the cities, they have introduced them. One of the very few new ornamentals they have introduced in the last 40 years. Yeah, they really did a lot of effort. Bulgaria always made a lot of effort to have a capital that looks really fancy. And yeah, before communist times it was actually called the Little Vienna of the Balkans. When you look at this ensemble here, of course a lot of the fancy buildings are covered by trees, but yeah, you cannot just cut down every tree just to see the fancy buildings. They do it in the West, we don't do it. But yeah, this area kind of looks like a little copy of Vienna. Well, I guess in Vienna the buildings are a little bit bigger and sticking out over the trees, but nah, keep the trees, I don't care. Oh yeah, and Alexander Nevsky, they say the Russians gifted this church to the Bulgarians. It's also kind of, yeah, there are some Russian influences in the style. I guess they gifted it to the Bulgarians just like they gifted the cultural palace to the Polish. They gifted them the plans and told them, build it and tell everybody we gifted it to you. Yeah, and here is the golden dome where the acrobats scraped off the metal. They went to prison for basically a minimal amount of gold. See the mountain over there? The best feature of all of Sofia, Vitosha mountain, an ancient maybe volcano, maybe not, 2,200 something meters high, so above the tree line. A lot of ski resorts and stuff. Sofia is one of the very few European capitals that has something in front of the city, right in front of the city. Like my family and me, we used to spend like many weekends there every year. It used to be very cheap to get up there. Well, you had to pay a certain price for the bus to get near the peak, but if you had a daily ticket for the city, which was cheaper than the one-way ticket to the peak, you could use it to the peak. So it was basically free for us to go there. Yeah, those were simple times. Beautiful mountain, a lot of alpine biodiversity up there. Unfortunately, this time I don't have time to go there. Maybe on the way back to Germany I will manage to get a day for that. What's that fancy building? Here it smells again so nicely of linden trees. I guess I'm about 1 week late for the big flower and the big smell of the linden trees, but wow, that's so great. You have it also in western cities, but in Bulgaria, because we have less diversity with the ornamental trees, we plant a lot of linden and they smell nice. It might just last a week or two, but it's worth it. An invasive cottonwood, Populus probably ex canadensis. This means that we had some quite moist periods, because they don't get established in every year. They get established in really wet years. Botanical garden is somewhere there, but I guess it's too late for it. In front of the National Library, some huge old tree. Is this an ash or maybe a black walnut? It's huge. Guess it's probably worth checking out. The university. Well, the central building of the university. Want to hear a funny story? My father was big in construction, very big in the 90s, and he got tasked with replacing the roof of this university, which was, what, 90, about 100 years old at the time. Some rich businessmen in the late 19th century, they donated money to build this university, and there was a lot of money left, and they put it, of course, not in a Bulgarian bank. We have been corrupt for millennia. They put it in a Swiss bank, and then the communists came, expropriated the university and so, and said, well, the money is part of the university, so since we took the university, now the money is ours. And of course the Swiss said, dude, we are keeping the money of the whole world and not giving it back. What do you think we'll give you your money back? And over the 100 years, a lot of interest accumulated. So there was a lot of money. So the Bulgarians said, the roof is, well, not on fire, but rotting. We don't need no water inside our university. We need to repair the roof. And the Swiss said, okay, we'll give you a tiny amount of the money to repair the roof. The roof was perfectly fine, by the way. Great craftsmanship, great copper. Well, my father and his buddies, they were tasked to rip off the old copper and replace it with new copper. Got a lot of money. It was still a tiny amount of the money sitting in Switzerland. And my father said they made it 10 times worse than it was. Worse craftsmanship and worse materials. He wasn't really proud of this roof job. Telling you more anecdotes of this city than I'm telling you about the plants. Sorry for that, folks. You cannot stop me. It's a free world. At least that's what we are telling ourselves all the time. Here, by the way, laurel cherry, native to Bulgaria, pretty rare. I've seen it only once in the wild. Kind of edible, but I think it was never too common as an ornamental for some reason around here. It was more common in Germany than here. Let's see, what is this old tree? Oh yeah, we are really proud of our letters here. Remember the country of Macedonia? The Greeks said, you want to become a EU member? You have to rename yourself into North Macedonia. Then the Bulgarians say, you want to become a EU member? Then you have to admit that we invented the Cyrillic letters and not Macedonia. And now Macedonia calls itself North Macedonia and claims they never invented any letters. We did. Well, probably we did, but it was still blackmail. Yep, it's an ash, not a chestnut. So I don't know anything edible about the ash, but nevertheless, it's a nice, beautiful tree. And I guess it oozes ice cream, strawberry ice cream to be precise. And here very popular in Bulgaria, this cultivar of the ash, where the leaves often have only one or very few leaflets compared to the wild form, which has a lot of leaflets. And yes, before you hate me, I know it was kind of oversimplified to say that the Bulgarians invented the letters. It's kind of a consensus that some people from Byzantine, Roman Macedonia, but people with Bulgarian ancestry probably invented the Glagolic alphabet for the Pannonians, an extinct Slavic people, and then later their students went to Bulgaria and invented the Cyrillic alphabet. The students were not Bulgarian, but they were working here. So we are claiming it and nobody can stop us because Byzantine Empire is gone, the Roman Empire is gone, the Pannonians are gone, we are still here. So the only one who was never involved in the invention of the Cyrillic alphabet, but who claims it nowadays, is Russia. Oh, a bit of zoology. Look at the crow here. This pigeon just came out of the bed and, well, ignore the pigeon. See the crow? It's not completely black, it's partially gray. In Eastern Europe, the crows are not completely black. They are black and gray, while in Western Europe, they are pure black. They are two different races or subspecies of the same species of crow, but the one in the east has a lot of gray. Here one of the very few recent additions to the Bulgarian ornamentals. I always forget the name. Was it the Photinia or something? I think it's in the rosaceae. Tell me, folks, it's quite popular. Well, it became popular in the West very recently too, so I guess, yeah, makes sense. Oh yeah, also a beautiful thing from communist times, since the color of communism is red. They loved red plants, so red roses were dominating the public squares, also red Canna edulis, and this tradition has kind of persisted. They are still more common than other colors. Oh, look at that. They abused my name for a bike rack. Can I get money for that? And of course, the last letter is missing. A magnolia. Unfortunately, they are quite rare in Bulgaria. I don't know why. Beautiful stuff. There are a couple hardy ones, but they were always on the fancy side for Bulgaria. Udlaya davidi, an invasive, I think, East Asian shrub. Entomologists love it because butterflies and bees and such animals love it. Botanists hate it because it's invasive. Another one of those fancy parks. I mean, basically most parks were very well maintained in communist times, but around here we had, as I said, most of the ruling class of communism, so those parks were even nicer, and they have been restored to more or less the same level as they used to be in communist times. In the 90s they were dumps. Here a very beautiful white poplar or white cottonwood, really big, probably not 2 meters thick, but 170, 180, beautiful. Well, I guess not everything has been restored in the fancy parks. Are those big beer bottles, and are they still full, or are they pea jars? And yeah, well, a lot of the old trees are beautiful. Yeah, the diversity is really minimal compared to good Western parks. Very few people tried to plant crazy, unusual things in Bulgaria, especially in communist times. There was a canon of permitted ornamentals, and this was planted. They didn't plant a lot of fancy species. Here some could be a planted ornamental apple, could also be that somebody threw away an apple core and this is a feral seedling, but they were clever enough to leave it. No more public toilets nowadays. If you want to go to the toilet, you need to go to a restaurant. Oh, and here in front of the toilet, the honey locusts, the fruits are kind of edible under some conditions, but never step into the giant thorns. Well, I guess if you are fit and fearless enough, you can still use the public toilet. Hackberry. We have a native species in Bulgaria, and I guess this is it. It's edible. It's not even a berry. It's a fruit with a big seed. Here are the unripe fruits. One big seed, so technically not a berry, but edible. Oh, Osage thorn or Osage orange. As a child, I was so intrigued that grapefruits could grow in cold Sofia, because grapefruits were one of the fancy imported fruits. And then when I found them on the street, my mother told me, no, those grapefruits are not edible. Some say only the mastodons and the mammoths and the giant sloths. I must be careful not to say giant sluts. I said that once when I was in Arizona and the Americans were very offended. I was looking for those big, fat, hairy, lazy, sleepy, giant animals from the Ice Age, not for the other thing. Well, basically they say the giant sloths and the mammoth and the mastodons were eating those, and when the megafauna became extinct, the Osage thorn in Oklahoma and Texas didn't have any animals to disperse them. However, cattle ranchers told me the cows love them, the cattle eat them like crazy. So if the cattle eat them, the buffalo must also have eaten them. So basically, no, they didn't lose their dispersal agent after the mastodons and the giant sloths became extinct. And by the way, the plant is very spiny. However, this seems to be a spineless cultivar, a fancy spineless cultivar. Also, the timber is incredibly tough. Like the Osage Indians used it for bows and for everything else where you need the maximum toughness of timber. Very good timber. By the way, the seeds are edible. Weird Explorer made a video about it. Here we have a couple oldish hackberries growing as bushes. Well, or as multi-stem trees. I wonder if all those 6 stems used to be one tree, or if they planted one here and one here. Could be that they are all suckers from a big trunk that disappeared here. Sometimes they fruit in masses. Oh yeah, this is fruiting really heavily. See this? So many little fruities. They are small, but they taste kind of pretty sweet and tasty, so they're quite important for foraging, especially in parts of North America. They used to be quite important. On Google there was some rosarium in this park, and I expected something big. Don't get me wrong, it's super beautiful, but when I see a rosarium in Western cities, it's usually 10 times the size of this. I mean, I'm here also exactly at the right time. I would say this is the height of the flowering season for those roses. I don't think that this rosarium has a very long flowering time. Everything seems to be flowering now, like I'm at exactly the peak of it, but still I would have wished it to be 10 times bigger. Horse chestnut with fruits. They are not edible, but you can use them for soap. And also the British used them to bomb the Germans in World War I and II. No, not like we did this as children, throw them at each other. I mean, the spiny fruit hurt and the hard seed hurt also. No, the British were making explosives from them and dropping them on top of the Germans. Yeah, those were crazy times. Here the Persian walnut, which is the only walnut of commercial importance as a fruit tree in Europe. In America there are a lot more, and then they often call it the British walnut, because of course the British brought it to North America, while the pecans and hickories and black walnuts, and so they were native to North America. So that's why the Americans call it British. The Bulgarians just call it orech, which means nut. But the Russians call it grechki orech, which means Greek walnut, Greek nut, because most of Russia was too cold to cultivate it. It came from the south, from Greece, Turkey, Bulgaria. The Germans call them walnuss, walnut, which the original form was Welschenus, nut from Wales, not the Wales on the British island, but Wallis in southern Switzerland, which was like a pars pro toto for Italy. So basically the Germans call it Italian nut, the Russians call it Greek nut, the Americans call it British nut, but the most correct name is probably Persian walnut, because that's more or less kind of the center of the natural distribution. Also very nice timber. Used to be the only timber, the only European timber good enough for gun butts, until it was replaced by processed and augmented timbers. But this basically, you can cut a piece from this and use it to make a gun. Well, not the important parts of the gun, but the wooden part. Yeah, really not much diversity. Even as a child, I was happy finding any rare tree. Like even when I was 3 or 4 years old in Trevna, we had a magnolia grandiflora in front of a school. I was so happy even as a little kindergartner. Also here in Sofia, in front of my kindergarten, we had some larix trees. I was so happy about them. Even as a kindergartner, I was looking for rare trees, but rare trees in Bulgaria are rare. In the West, they are so common, but oh, help, those children scared me. Well, here we have some, what is it? Is it taxodium or something like that? I forgot the name. And ginkgo, both were really rare here in Bulgaria. What is this? This looks interesting. Oh yeah, this is interesting. A beautiful old specimen of Prunus mahaleb, a cherry of hot, dry areas. It grows in places like Arabia and Iran and Turkey, and in Germany it grows only in the hottest and driest places, and it rarely grows to such sizes. This is a discovery, and I bet most people here don't know how rare this is to have a Prunus mahaleb of that size. I must make a video of this. Yeah, I guess you can guess that Sofia was part of the Roman Empire once. Fragmenti от украсата на храма на Зевс, Serapis. So this was a temple of Zeus. However, since it was here after Christ, I would say that, I don't know, was it Zeus or was it Jupiter? Also, oh my God, in the 90s, this small piece would have ended up somewhere on an antique market for sure. Piece of a Roman marble column. But yeah, everywhere in the Roman Empire nowadays you find those big Roman remnants. They built a lot better than us, and I don't think much is gonna be left from us after 2000 years. Is this Laburnum or some other Fabaceae? I'm not sure, so for now I will not say anything about it. Oh, this is some new and fancy oak. We didn't have that in my time. Okay, so this year I'm seeing a lot more new things than just 3 years ago. A lot more new ornamental species. Maybe because I'm spending more time in the really fancy parks this year. An ancient black locust. So those things here are the honey locusts, because you can extract the honey-like substance from the fruits. This is the black locust. The fruits are poisonous like almost every other part of it. The flowers are tasty and edible. It grows pretty fast, but I still think this thing is probably over 100 years old. Yeah, has been cut back and dried back a lot of times, but it's still surviving. Beautiful gnarly old trees, but incredibly invasive. The timber, despite the fact that they grow fast, the timber is incredibly tough, and almost it takes decades to rot. Basically, they're actually bridges in the American West. Bridges from the 19th century, you know, from those Wild West movies when the train goes on a wooden bridge that's impossibly tall and you think this can never carry a train. This is some sort of steel construction they covered with wood just for the Western movie. Nope. In the Wild West of America, there are still bridges made from this thing, which are crazy tall and crazy long over some canyons, and they still stand strong after 100 years. Wonderful timber, tasty flowers, produces a lot of high quality honey, fertilizes the ground, improves pet soil, but it's incredibly invasive. A big part of my job is to kill this, and they're almost unkillable, I'm telling you. Well, you can believe it when you look at this one. Oh, mulberries, shake it, baby, shake it. Well, no, you don't need to shake it for me. I'm tall enough. So this is a white version of the white mulberry, and I thought that somebody has brought an Osage orange here, but actually it's a tennis ball. Another white mulberry, different genotype, smaller leaves, and a lot more fruits. But I guess most of them... Wow. The first ones are ripening. Aucuba, variegated Aucuba. I think this is also a new introduction. Wow. 3 years ago I found just about 3 new plants in 40 years, 3 new ornamental shrubs in 40 years. And today I found maybe 3 or 4 more. I'm impressed at the speed Bulgarian ornamental parks are changing. 7 new plants in 40 years. Wow. Dude, why are you putting up fake plastic wisteria flowers all over your shop? Plant a real wisteria. I mean, okay, those are here 12 months a year, while the real wisteria will flower just for a few weeks a year, but still. Even the bunnies are made of fake lawn. Typical Stalinist era living neighborhoods. Look, a lot of stone. They actually called this limestone made from algae. The communists called it marble. A lot of ornaments and stuff. Yeah, they built very beautiful buildings in the Stalinist era. Yeah, you wouldn't expect it, but after Stalin they noticed, well, or even during Stalin they noticed they cannot build enough for everybody. So after Stalin they used to build the tall and ugly ones, but at least soon almost everybody got a flat. Chickweed, one of the best plants to forage, well, when it's wet enough. I guess there was a lot of rain here a couple weeks ago, but by now it would be okay as a survival plant, but it wouldn't be tasty anymore. But a very good plant for foraging. You pick this as a whole quite carefully. You on a cleaner spot, not here. You shake away the a couple weeks ago. You shake away the dirt and dust. You wash it. You cut it. It's very easy. You get 3 or 4 of this size. You have a salad for a family, and they taste delicious when they are a little bit more fresh, of course. How clever, this guy is extinguishing his cigarette before he throws it in the trash. When I was young, well, you notice here the old communist trash bins. He was also so clever to use one of the old metal ones. All the trash bins were of metal in our time because people were often heating with coals or wood, and they would throw the hot ash into the trash bins and they would smoke and the trash would burn and people would get lung diseases and cancer and stuff from that. But then when the German companies took over and introduced plastic trash bins, they actually all burned down the first winter. And here quite a Frankenstein trash bin, a metal communist body and a plastic German lid. I remember the first time they introduced them, a lot of them were actually used in Germany already, so they came here with traces of trash inside and were immediately put into use. Probably they were not up to standards for Germany. They were put to use here with the remnants of the old trash without being washed. And as I said, none of them survived the first winter. They all got, even in summer, a lot of them got burned down, but the last got burned down in winter. Bad times back then. The air was not really breathable in Eastern Europe a couple decades ago. People would drop dead from the air pollution. Yeah, bad times. Back the day you could starve to death, die because you had no medicine, or just die for no apparent reason, coughing from the horrible black air. In winter the snow in Sofia was black, and when they collected the snow in piles, when those piles melted away, sometimes such a thick layer of soot, of poisonous soot remained, and that means that you had a similar layer in your lungs. Scarlet pimpernels, also very important flower for the communists. Yeah, you might say the pre-communist buildings were beautiful, the Stalinist buildings were beautiful, and then the post-Stalinist buildings were ugly, but remember, they never had the means to build such buildings for everybody. They were for a minority, but the ugly big boxes they built after Stalin, at least they could house all those millions of people who before that lived in shelters and primitive houses after the chaos of World War II. So yeah, those things are beautiful, but sometimes you need to build ugly to house everybody in a modern way. Oh, look at that, at least a couple of the yellow cobblestones. However, this is some more modern design, and a couple of the yellow cobblestones were incorporated in it. Yeah, fancy stuff, those yellow cobblestones. Yeah, there must have been a couple pretty rainy weeks here, because this lamb's quarters looks delicious. Wow, I want this. Oh. I must say the flavor is a little bit eau de toilette, if you get me. But it's still quite nice and tender. The Eagle Bridge. They say everybody who is a real native of Sofia has helped build this bridge. A lot of people coming from random villages claimed that their grandfathers helped build this bridge. Don't believe them, it was my grandpa. Or at least he made sure to always point out that we are passing by the Eagle's Bridge when we were around here, so it was quite important for him. Coming out in another park. Oh, smoke bush. Purple ornamental variety. Smoke bush in English, wick bush in German, big stinker in Bulgarian. Did I already tell the story about how I brought the big stinker on the Orient Express? How the naked savage brought the big stinker on the Orient Express, the fanciest train in the world? Oh well, ask me to tell it if I haven't yet. A bear statue. There are still hundreds of them in the forests of Bulgaria, but they are very clever animals. Never seen a single one. I'm sure they have seen me many times. Oh, is this the true chamomile now? No, I don't think so, no. Doesn't smell like the true chamomile, and the inflorescence is too hard. Vitosha is visible perfectly right now. However, basically the major rule for hiking there is, if you don't see the peaks of Vitosha clearly in the morning, you should not hike, because you will get a horrible storm in the afternoon, and it works out almost every time. It might look like a hill you can almost touch from here, but remember it's a high mountain. It might not be the Alps, but actually when I was being born, at the same day my father was he was one of those mountain rescue people. It was in January. He was with his group trying to rescue a group of foreigners on the mountain. All the foreigners died, but the operation was still considered a success, because my father managed to bring back everybody from his group back alive. So all the rescuers survived, barely, but they survived. All the people they were supposed to rescue died, but let's focus on the positive things. And never ever climb Vitosha if you cannot see it clearly early in the morning. Amorpha fruticosa, the false indigo, a fabaceae you can identify even in the dark from its distinctive smell. It's an ornamental, and it's also being used to stabilize soil along railroads, just like the black locust. Apart from that, I don't know of any use of the false indigo. Tell me if you know something. One of the countless monuments to the Soviet/Russian liberators. You know, while Bulgaria eternally loves Russia because they came to free us from slavery already twice. And you know why Bulgaria hates America? Because they refused to come and free us even once. For telling this joke in communist times, you got life. Or maybe death, like depending on how the police felt on that day. But yeah, grew up with all those monuments and now they're fencing them in. Oh yeah, those violets were also very typical in communist times. Well, not only in communist times, but they were easy to produce and to plant. However, you need to water them, baby. You need to water them. Yeah, those monuments survived. Not much metal to steal. What is it supposed to be? A foreskin? Interesting. Well, a lizard with a camera. Another ruin without any explanation. However, there is a millstone. So I guess could have been an old mill. When the communists made this park, I guess they decided to leave some remnants of the old mill. Or I think it was a mill. I mean, they could have brought the millstone from somewhere else. Funny enough, the mill is made from Vitosha granite, but the millstone is made from sandstone. Also, I wonder what type of mill was here. I mean, the Eagle Bridge is nearby, so maybe there was a channel of the river here, because we are not high enough for a windmill. That would have been on some higher hill than those here. Yeah, interesting. Like they just left some random ruin here. I guess this here could be the place where the millstone was grinding. And no explanation, no nothing. Just, yeah, I guess the river was going here. A lot of rounded granite pieces. Now, basically all rivers in Sofia are in either in tunnels underground or in very deep, ugly channels. No natural rivers left within the city limits. Well, at least not in the central part. Another nice old mulberry. Oh, and another one right here. Mulberry season just starting. Interesting. Compared to 3 years ago, Sofia is not that well maintained anymore. 3 years ago, I was surprised not to find anything like this, but now somebody has tried to repair it just by dumping in a couple wheelbarrows of dirt. Oh, now this is a beautiful old mulberry tree. Short and stocky, but really thick. I mean, compared to the trash bin here, the base is about 1 meter thick, but higher up where it's branching, it gets to almost 2 meters. It's funny, a tree which is much thinner on the ground than in chest height. Usually you measure them at chest level, and at chest level this would get quite a circumference. Beautiful old tree. Too lazy to make a separate video of it right now, so enjoy it in this video. How old do you think it is? Definitely not as old as the 650-year-old tree, but I mean, can it be that old? Those are ventilation pipes. So wait, this cannot have been built much earlier than the 60s, maximum 50s, all those underground things. And the ventilation pipes are right next to it, so but no, this must be much older than the 50s or 60s. Did they leave the small spot around it? I'm making a video. On a completely unrelated note, look at that column. It's covered with well over 10 centimeters of posters. Oh well, up there, probably 20 centimeters thickness of posters. This wouldn't have been possible in the 90s. Paper was a currency. Hundreds of thousands of people in Bulgaria, especially, well, basically everybody, but hundreds of thousands were doing it more or less professionally, collecting old paper from the trash, from the street, from everywhere. And this here, this old paper would have been worth definitely more than a month's pension, several months' pensions. Well, I guess it would have never accumulated like this in the 90s because people would have ripped it off. Almost nobody stuck posters anywhere. People would have ripped it off just to put it on the walls of their flats because it was so beautiful and prettier than anything they could afford. But just the value in old paper in the 90s, that's a treasure sticking to this column here. And those are two fat chickens. Those underground passages were so scary in the 90s. All the light bulbs were stolen. Basically there were no shops and stuff. They were full of trash. So, whenever I would pass through such a spot, oh yeah, people with violent dogs everywhere, only they were much more violent back then. Whenever I would pass through such a spot, I would check whether my big hunting knife was sitting loose. However, right now I don't have a big hunting knife, so please don't attack me. I don't want to do bad things to your eyes. Yeah, but I remember those places were places of horror, even for me, a big violent guy with a big hunting knife. Imagine how it was for women, children, or old people. That's why a lot of them bought violent dogs to defend themselves. Oh, this is a big sonchus. Quite a big piece of lettuce here. And this feral cherry tree, definitely not planted, but people were clever enough to leave it for the fruits. Just like this little cherry plum. But yeah, I have to say that 3 years ago, Sofia, the cleanliness and tidiness was at its peak for the 21st century. Now it has gone a bit down again. Here another cherry plum hanging full of tasty fruits. Trolley buses, such a clever thing. Why don't all cities have them? Why do you have those electric cars which you have to recharge all the time? Those trolley buses are so great that if they have a battery and can go a couple kilometers without wires, then it's even easier. The infrastructure is really cheap to build. You don't need all those huge batteries and recharging infrastructure. Every city should have those before they do some fancy new electric thing. The technology for this has existed 100 years ago, and yeah, fortunately they are still very common in the East. Another fruit and veg shop. Let's see again, almost everything produced in Bulgaria, or if not in Bulgaria, in nearby countries. The avocados, the limes, and the bananas and the oranges are imported, maybe even the melons this time of the year, not sure. But everything else either produced in Bulgaria or somewhere nearby. You know what I haven't seen all day, where I was here about half a day, but still I walked through a big part of Sofia center. A banicharnica, a standard Bulgarian breakfast place, like where you get banica and boza. Banica is like burek and boza is what the beer is before it ferments, a sweet sticky drink. I've seen pizza places everywhere, but not a single banicharnica. Okay, a lot of them are closed in the afternoon, but I haven't seen a single one. That's scary. This stuff is good if it's made well. I want banitsa, but they used to be every 50 meters. The only stuff many people could afford. Where are they? Döner and pizza places everywhere, but no banitsa. Also quite a boring area for foraging. This used to be one of the many places where the shoe shiners used to wait for their victims. They would promise to shine your shoes for a couple cents, and then suddenly it would cost a couple, well, not a couple euros, but more than some people would earn in a day around here, which was usually less than €1. Hristo was a famous Bulgarian artist, used to wrap things about 20-30 years ago. Wrapping houses, wrapping trees, wrapping cliffs, wrapping landmarks. This reminds me of him, although I don't think this is supposed to be art. This is supposed to be probably wrapping the house to prevent stuff from falling down. In the 90s, nobody would have had money to wrap a house like this in Bulgaria. He was only working in the West. In the 90s, if anybody wrapped the house in anything, this anything would be gone the next morning. Same goes for those fancy plastic/rubber sidewalks here. Everybody would say, this would look a lot better in my private garden. Boring street for foraging. I'm walking quite far already. I bet those Stalin era buildings could tell a lot of interesting stories, but I don't know them. Oh, I guess this is fast food joint for ants. Don't eat the pizza, boy. Safety first, I guess. I wonder, can I charge my phone here? Or maybe I will get a signal? Tell me what you think. Oh, feral grapevine. Guess somebody spit out some grape seeds around here. Don't throw away the roof tiles, folks. People need them. You know, if you want to repair your roof, that you need more or less exactly the same type of roof tiles, and if they're not produced anymore, you are toast. Finally another park. So it was definitely quite rainy here a couple weeks ago, but I guess it's already dry enough for them to water the parks. Another thing that wouldn't have worked in the 90s or even in the early 2000s or even before, people would have stolen those sprinklers on the first day. I mentioned the red roses. Yeah. Oh, what's this? The red roses. Heritage from the communists. But no, back then white roses wouldn't have been that would have not been that popular. It would have been like 90% red roses. The National Culture Palace used to be the People's Culture Palace, the fanciest place in Sofia, like the fanciest place for big events in the country. That's why a lot of real granite and marble around here. It was built by the daughter of our communist dictator, and even the communists in the communist time were complaining. Other big communists were risking a lot. Why are we building this thing? For the same money we could build a couple factories. Yeah. Cannot imagine for how fancy the Bulgarians considered this thing back then. I guess they still do. I say they, but I'm one of them. I'm undercover. The sun is setting earlier than I'm used to. Well, of course, we are here further south. So yeah, have to get used to slightly shorter days. Guess this is also a way to water the lawn, but probably the technological one is more reliable. I remember 25-30 years ago they used to sell homemade toys here. Now they are still homemade by little Chinese children. Many Still forageable in the pedestrian street. Oh well, usually that's not the place to forage, that's the place to show off in Sofia. No cars, so more people can see. However, no, actually, they have less fancy fashion than some time ago. Basically normal street attire. I totally approve of this. The yellow cobblestones are fancy. What are the orange and red and brown ones, I wonder? We had brown ones back then, but no orange or red ones. Also the mushrooms used to look slightly different back then. But the old grannies are still selling flowers. We are not very far from where we started a couple hours ago. See in the distance, Sveta Nedelja, this church with the terrorist attack. That's where I started filming. Still, I haven't found a single place to sell normal banitsa in over 5 hours in Sofia. That's a big disappointment. If you want one more not plant related story, see the tram stop here? See this? This used to be the National Museum, but before it used to be the Supreme Court of Bulgaria, and of course after communist times the Supreme Court got the building back because if the Supreme judges sue you, you lose because it ends up with the Supreme judges. That's not the story. My story is, I was here in the tram, and to this stop a couple very modest little old people went on the tram. And back then the ticket controllers were horrible bullies. I guess they still are. Back then they would bully the people. They would use any opportunity to basically to extort money from them, sometimes with violence, sometimes they would even steal your ticket and then try to extort them. They tried with me back then. But yeah, those three very modest people climbed on the tram, and immediately they were assaulted by a bunch of thugs in charge of ticket control. And yeah, this was the time where there were already cell phones, so one of those old people just calmly said something into his cell phone. Those old people were some of the judges on the next station. You can imagine what happened. Like half of the Sofia police force was there, and the ticket controller bullies got their asses served to them, got arrested and charged with assaulting some Supreme judges. With all the stuff happening in the US right now, this sounds not like a story from 30 years ago, but like a story from yesterday. But yeah, I'm really glad I was here to witness this back then. Yeah, maybe that could give you some ideas. Yeah, that's what we do to people who assume they have the authority to bully everybody and not to regard law and order because they think they are the authority. Yeah, sometimes they get served. Oh, and here on Macedonia Square there is another not plant related story. You know, in the 90s nobody cared about traffic rules, so the cars had the advantage over the pedestrians, the trucks had the advantage over the cars, the priority, well, it was basically the advantage. The buses had the advantage over the trucks, but nobody would ever cross a tram. So the trams would just go to the city, and basically I would cross the street only in Sofia, only together with the tram, because anybody would ram a pedestrian, but nobody would mess with the tram. But sometimes this backfires. See this beautiful triangle of tram lines here? Since the trams always go without paying attention to anybody else, once 3 of them got stuck here like in a perfect triangle. Basically, yeah, 1 on each side. They had exactly the right length to get stuck and block this, and then it was fun. Funny. Some car dropped its muffler and stuff. That's another thing. In the 90s, this thing would have been gone within half a minute. That's many kilograms of valuable metals. Now it has been probably lying around for hours. Not in the 90s. In the 90s, this would have gone in negative time. Sorry folks, I don't find enough forageable things here. I wanted to show you the little, well, I also wanted to show myself the little park with the 2 churches because I've never seen it. Yeah, every weekend I would go visit my grandparents. I would change trains here. And then a little bit further, I would see this little park with this little church. They just cut the grass. The smell of freshly cut grass so nicely. More than a parkirator. Please don't park. But I want to get in. I don't want to park. I want to enter. And is there an icon leaning on the fence? What's this? I should be careful with the icons, folks. There are so many stories from Bulgaria. Somebody stole a couple icons from a church. 2 days later, he brought them back because half his family died. So what is this? Well, not gonna touch it, but I guess it's not a sin to film it. Oh, okay. This is not a traditional icon. This is more like a gobelin, and not necessarily with a religious theme. What is it doing here on the fence of a churchyard? So as far as I understand, this is supposed to be the Greek Orthodox Church of Bulgaria. Unlike the Catholics, the Orthodox are a little bit more split up. So we have the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, the Greek Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church, and so on. So this is a church of the Greek Orthodox Church. And they have walnuts. And the quince and the fig apparently, and some really run-down buildings. And on the other side, this bigger church over there is supposed to be the Armenian church. The Armenians, all the Orthodox are together. The Armenians are like half with the Orthodox and half independent. Don't think I've ever visited an Armenian church. I would like to. Well, I visited a monastery that was originally Armenian, the Bachkovo monastery. I wonder if this stuff, okay, it's after 8, so should be closed. Wonder if this stuff is open during the day. So folks, this was an incredibly long video. I don't even know when I stitch all the parts together. It's gonna be something between 1.5 and 2 hours. But it was funny for me to see a lot of places from my childhood. And why didn't my family tell me about those ancient mulberry trees? What other secrets have they kept from me? Well, another funny story that has nothing to do with plants. When I was a child, it was communism here, and of course it was illegal even to visit a church, except if you were an old pensioner, then they didn't care. And when we were ready to move to Germany, my grandmother was really afraid that, well, she wouldn't, well, I would go to a non-Orthodox country and maybe I would die a pagan, so she would go around and ask priests to baptize me, which was absolutely illegal back then. It was a crime to baptize children because, yeah, they hoped whenever the pensioners all died, then Christianity would die out. So of course, young people couldn't attend church. There were actually a lot of official people standing in front of every church and writing down names, like teachers from every neighboring school, representatives of every neighboring party and office building, factory and office building, and so on. So my grandma, she first brought me to Sveta Nedelja church, Well, she had donated so much money for decades, and those people didn't want to baptize me because a priest could go to interesting places for baptizing children back then. And then we were traveling from church to church to church. I was 6 years old, but I pretty much understood what was going on. And yeah, finally they found the priest who was baptizing children, and he also baptized me. So I'm officially a Christian, although of course I even have it with me. I only have a document from the state, but I don't have a document from the church that I'm baptized, because of course back then nobody was allowed to issue such documents. Well, folks, so yeah, this was a very long trip through my native city of Sofia. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful and sometimes kind of fruit-rich city of Sofia. And of course, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.